Okay, thank you everyone for attending. I'm going to hand the baton over to Vandana as chair. Vandana.
Thank you, Andrew. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are commencing our March OWASP Global Meet. And here, let's go ahead and take an attendance first. People I see on my screen is Martin.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'll just go ahead like this. I can see Bill.
I'm here.
I can see Glenn.
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Avi.
Yep.
Jobin.
Yep.
Myself, yes. And I can see the staff, Andrew,
Right.
Harold. Okay, thanks, Martin. I realized that you were not able to unmute. Thanks, Martin. Andrew, Don, Lauren, Harold, and I can also see Zoe, Yon on the call as well, and even Kelly. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the board meeting today. It's great to have you. Let's start with the roll call for the last month meeting minutes. So I hope every one of you are okay with it. So I'll take the, I'm sponsoring it.
Happy to second.
Thanks, Grant. Now I'll go ahead and take the name. Martin?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Avi?
Yes.
Jubin?
Yes.
And myself as yes. So now, Andrew, giving over to you to start the things for today, agenda for today.
Okay.
Over to you.
I actually, does anyone see, oh, there, Yvonne. Okay, so folks, we've been working with Yvonne from Schwabe for about 2.5 years now, I believe, Yvonne, looking back at all of the things. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get Yvonne to give you a status update where all of our marks are. Let me just put it on screen. I've got slides as well. I'm very happy to do the, like more or less the strategy part of this briefing as a normal part of business. But I think the board probably should hear about where we're up to, what marks have been approved, and any questions you might have. So with that, Yvonne.
Yep, Andrew, do you have the trademark status chart that I sent you? If you don't have it, I can share my screen.
Okay, I'm going to make you co-host. Oh, actually, can someone make Yvonne co-host and she can share? I'll stop sharing. Lauren, you'll need to do it.
Let's see.
You right click them and say, yep, there you go. Yay. So you should be able to click on share screen now.
Okay. Okay, can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Word document? Okay, so this is a list of all of your pending and registered trademarks worldwide. So I can kind of quickly read through these. For AppSec days, that mark is registered in the European Union and United Kingdom. It is pending in Australia and the United States. It should register in Australia because it's been published. So unless somebody opposes it, it will register. In the United States, it hasn't registered yet because we haven't proved use yet. But it is in good shape for registration. So moving down, AppSec Day Australia is also published and should register. Global AppSec is registered in European Union, United Kingdom, United States. So all good news there for Global AppSec. Open Web Application Security Project is registered in the United States. We didn't file for that anywhere else. Actually, we did file for it in the European Union, but it was refused registration on the grounds that it was merely descriptive, and we weren't able to overcome that refusal.
Yeah, we don't really call ourselves that outside of formal ways of talking about it.
Okay. Okay, so I won't say anything more on that one. OWASP, there are many, many registrations and pending applications, which I think is good because I think that's your most important mark. So registered in the United States, very good. Madrid is, it's a trademark application that we file through the World Intellectual Property Organization. You file it, it registers, and then you designate countries where you want it to, where you want that registration to take effect. So the fact that the Madrid is registered is good, but it doesn't mean much. What matters is what happens with the country designations. Okay, so OWASP through that filing is registered in Algeria and Australia, pending in Brazil and Egypt and Indonesia. It just registered in Israel, OWASP did. We haven't even reported that out yet to Andrew because it just registered. It's pending in Japan, Morocco, Mexico, registered in New Zealand, Singapore, and United Kingdom. And then you have separate applications for OWASP pending in Chile and Argentina. Have a registration for OWASP in the European Union. Pending OWASP applications in Argentina and Australia. And then you have a published application for the logo in Australia. There are no other, we haven't filed any other applications for the logo outside of Australia. And then these are just a list of abandoned marks. I can answer any questions about that if you want, but we received refusals for these marks and either decided not to try to overcome the issues or weren't able to overcome the issues.
Yeah, for the board's information, the refusals generally coincide with the organisation that we actually negotiated with in Europe. I'm sure that under the same circumstances with some additional fees, we might be able to challenge them. Some of these deadlines have gone and passed, so we can't go back and revisit that. But as part of the overall strategy for trademarks, we need to right size the amount of money that we're spending. And also, I think honestly, the amount of perceived income when we approved the original program had income attached to it, but we haven't seen any of that income. So I think honestly, if we get refusals, and this is part of the revised strategy, we should probably not negotiate with them and just let them go. The main one is OWASP, and as long as we get that in most countries, we should be fine. But yeah, not having it in Chile or Argentina. Sorry, where was one of the other ones that was abandoned?
Sorry.
Yeah, so China is abandoned. That's actually a different issue altogether. So Yvonne, can you just talk about China?
I believe the company, there's a company called SecZone, correct?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
They own a registration in China already for OWASP. And so it was cited as a bar to registration of our application for OWASP. And so the issue is interesting because it's I believe it might be a chapter or an unauthorized chapter.
No, it is where many of the OWASP China chapter leaders work, and they've done it through the context of their employer. They are a friendly company and we still need to negotiate with them. And so we probably don't want to go into it too deeply here, but fundamentally, I think this is a friendly negotiation, not a difficult one.
Yep, it's not an uncommon thing. A lot of times, for example, distributors will file for a registration or manufacturers in China when they are manufacturing for another company. So that's probably the kind of thing that happened here. It probably wasn't born out of ill will, but ultimately, ideally, they would assign that registration to OWASP Foundation if we're able to get that to happen.
Yeah, we absolutely do need to have a conversation with them. Does the board remember who was going to be the board champion for that? Okay, Grant. Grant's waved his hand. I'm pretty sure, but Vandana, if you want to be, you're probably closer in time zone as well.
Yeah, I think originally you did say Vandana, and I'm happy for Vandana to take lead on it.
Okay, good. I will work with you, Vandana, and CC Grant, and let's get that meeting set up before the next month. Okay. So Yvonne, we've obviously got some Madrid registrations and other things going forward. From one of the concerns that we do have is just the sheer cost of defending our marks, but also AppSec Days is run by volunteers, and unless in COVID times volunteers are able to run regional events, we can't really demonstrate use. So let's do that one first, because we do have a number of pending AppSec Days, like the US one for AppSec Days is running right now. We don't have any AppSec Days currently in the pipeline. And so when is a deadline that we need to get this done by, and what will happen if we can't demonstrate use?
So on May 5th, so a couple months from now, we have a deadline to either prove use or file another 6-month extension. And so you have 2 more of those. So you essentially have until May 5th, 2023 as your, hold on, let me count. Yeah, you have until May 5th, 2023 as your final deadline to prove use of that mark in the United States. It doesn't, if you have a licensee like these volunteers that are operating an event, that can count as your use if it's like a licensed use. But we do need to show that there's an event held under the mark AppSec Days and that US residents attend it by May 5th, 2023, or we lose that application.
Okay, well, we will try our hardest.
Yeah.
I just want to jump in real fast. Sorry. The OWASP Pacific Northwest, they hold a conference and they've agreed this year, it's in person, June 11th, and they've agreed to call it AppSec Days.
Okay.
Then Yvonne, we will approve an extension in May. And let's hope we can get the evidence you need by the next extension date.
Okay, that's perfect. So we'll file that extension and then, exactly, we'll just wait for the information from you. Okay.
Now, one of the things that we talked about in our call was what do other nonprofits use? How do they go about defending their marks, and what do they actually register?
Other organizations, most other organizations are set up differently than you, but they often will file, the organization name. So for you, that's OWASP, right? And then many of them have a certification mark where they have technical specifications, and then if member products meet that, they get to bear the certification mark. So they usually file for that. So I don't believe you guys have one of those.
Not yet.
In terms of where do they file, typically, we're seeing United States, European Union, United Kingdom, China. Oftentimes we'll see Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore. It really depends on where their members are located, their primary members. But some different organizations have different strategies. Some file in the United States and that's it. Some file in 5 countries and that's it. Some file in 130 countries and that's excessive and costs way too much money, and I don't think it's worth it. So you guys are you've filed in a fair amount of places, but you did use Madrid, and that is less expensive than filing direct applications in all of those countries. So that's a good way of doing it. And for the most part, I will say that your applications have largely kind of sailed through. We haven't seen the level of refusals that we normally see, knock on wood. So I think, unless we see, like you said, substantive refusals, we'll just keep pushing these through since they've already been filed. Way down the road, you can decide whether it's worth it to renew them, but that doesn't come for, years. You don't need to make that decision now.
Okay, Martin.
Yeah, my question was about our logo. Why
Yeah.
was it only registered in Australia?
That's right. And so the original thinking there was, and that did happen before Andrew was involved. But the original thinking was that OWASP is supremely important. And I believe that when we were deciding what to file for, there was potential for even revising the logo. And so we didn't want to file for it. So if that logo is important, then we should think about filing for that.
Mhm.
I think definitely it's important.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jubin.
Wait, Avi had a question first. I'll let Avi go first.
You.
Okay, all right. So I see that the right column has next steps and action items listed. I wasn't clear if that's next steps for your team, Yuan, or is that specific to OWASP? Like for something that's published, there's
Mhm.
nothing we have to do ongoing to retain and maintain that trademark.
Yeah, I mean, it's important for you to know all of this is in our docket and we're responsible for it. So there's nothing that you need to worry about aside from trying to get Sec Zone to assign the Chinese registration to you, because I'm not involved in that process at this point. And then telling me if there's anything, once I give you an action item, once I talk to Andrew about something, then giving me the input, like he just told me to file that extension. So we'll do that. This is information that you might want. So you might want to know, like when your renewals are coming due in 2029, you've got some in 2026. But yeah, there's nothing that we're going to let fall through the cracks. So we'll let you know when we need input from you, and then you'll tell us.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Avi.
Thanks. I have a question, or rather I have two questions now around variants. So first part, AppSec days, does that also include variants of that? For instance, there was AppSec Australia, AppSec Israel, or is it
No.
specifically AppSec days only?
It's AppSec days only. And so the way that I would address that is with your use. So I would have the AppSec days be prominent, and then the country be maybe smaller font, or a little bit separate. However, if you want the country where it's located to be more prominent, it needs to be kind of separate from the mark. Now that matters mostly in the United States, because we have to prove use in the United States to get the mark to register. You don't have to do that anywhere else.
Okay.
And so you don't have to be as particular about usage. But the best option is for AppSec days to stand apart by itself, and then to have the modifiers look different somehow, different font, some space. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have an internal conversation around that to decide what we do with existing conferences, if we need to require them to relabel or whatnot. But I think it's not that critical from your perspective.
Yeah.
Same question with regards to the logo, by the way, because a lot of chapters have variants of the same thing with just the country flag's color on it or something like that.
So I can see the logo behind a couple of you. If we protect that mark, we would do it in black and white, which means we're not claiming color, which gives you the broadest rights in terms of changing the color. However, you can't change anything else. So you should not be like adding words inside, like behind or in front of the WASP or anything else. You really can't change logos. They're very, it's important to use it exactly as you filed for it, except you can change the color. Does that make sense? Maybe if I saw a sample of what you're talking about, I could advise if I thought that was okay.
We only have a blue and a black one.
Sorry, Avi, do you mind if I just write off your question for a second?
You do?
For example, if we overlaid like an American flag mask on the exact logo, like the colors had the red, blue, and white stripes, like for a 4th of July thing, is that still protected on their trademark? No changes to the wording and the picture, but the coloring is now modified.
I honestly feel like I would need to see that to answer. Typically you're allowed to change the color, but if you're adding like actual stripes to like the circle or the WASP, that might be different, that might be perceived as different. Now, it doesn't mean you can never, I mean, if you have a special 4th of July event and you want to do it, then do it, you know, because you guys use that everywhere. We're going to be able to prove use of that for in the United States. So if you have a special event and you want to change it just for that event, then I would do it. I don't want to box you in too much because I see that logo on your website. Like clearly it's okay. You know, you can have a couple different uses. We're not going to register every single one because that would be cost prohibitive.
None?
Yeah, so one is that for the background for RW with the AppSec, it was voted to have the local events pushed to use AppSec days rather than Benelux Day, whatever, just to be able to protect it. What's the proof of use? I wonder, what does it mean? Is it the last half year, last 2 years? Is there a difference in now with COVID that we can go further back in history to say that we did it, but now with COVID we have this restriction, then we'll use it?
It's a good question. For the United States, at the time that we have to prove use, it really needs to be current. You know, these are, it's an event. So it's not like the event has to be that day that we file the proof of use, but it should have been pretty recent. We shouldn't be saying, well, we had an event 3 years ago, so that counts. Okay.
Right.
However, once we prove use, then you have a little more room because you don't have to do that again for 6 years in the United States. So it's okay that you don't have events constantly. If they're every year, that would be good, but
can we can prove that we did it in the past, but we haven't done it for COVID restrictions. That would be sufficient or not?
not for our use deadline. We need to be able to prove, you know, we had an event in the last couple months, which it sounds like you're about to do. You're gonna have one in June. So we'll be okay.
Right, thanks.
Yeah.
That answers my question. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Vandana?
I realize that we have to set your certain guidelines for the chapters around these brandings. Then only these things can be streamlined. Because if we don't have it, these kind of questions keep coming up. We have had these questions, we will have these questions. So we can actually have certain things wherein we can say that logo should be approved by the staff so that we have unanimity in all the logos that we are going to have. Because teams have different logos, team have different designers, team have different things. And not everything can be controlled. But if we lay down the guidelines that logo should be approved by the staff, I know it's an additional thing, but yes, if it's possible, then it's going to be very helpful.
I actually do have a slide on branding templates. We need to update our templates to include and various things, but also because we're actually getting behind the OWASP registered trademark, we should be including OWASP or the logo, just like DEF CON does. Every piece of merch DEF CON sells either has their smiley face skull and crossbones, or it has the word DEF CON. There's the only two choices. They're both registered trademarks. They don't produce any swag that doesn't have it, but they're very inventive and very colorful merch. So it's not a prohibitor against actually doing something imaginative. But yes, we do need to actually update our policy and our guidelines and our templates. Okay, are there any other questions for Yvonne? Okay, with that, thank you, Yvonne. Very, very helpful. For your information, the things that we talked about in our meeting are roughly where we're going with the strategy. Thank you for your advice. It was actually very, very useful. Obviously, I want the board to know that Yvonne actually hasn't reviewed the materials and she actually hasn't approved or disapproved of them. That's actually all my fault. If there was mistakes, it's me. It's not Schwabe, it's okay. So I consulted Schwabe, but I did not get them to review the materials. So Yvonne, you're off the hook.
Okay. You want me to sign off now?
Oh, if you want, that'd be good.
Okay, thank you. It was nice to meet you all. Okay.
Okay.
Here, how to do this.
Okay, I'm going to take the screen again. Okay, now with that, we can either return to our normal business and do the executive director report and the finance reports, and then do our normal business, and I can do the slides at the appropriate time. Or alternatively, we can just continue on this thought pattern and then do the executive director report and the finance reports. What would you like to do?
I want to go further with the reports.
Okay.
I said I have a hard stop at the hour, so I have to leave.
Okay. No worries. So let me just get this going. We are trying and thanking Martin for the feedback on things that weren't being reported to you in an appropriate way. We are looking for feedback to better report what we're doing and the status of things. So that's what's happening this month. There isn't a lot of text. Oops, I don't want to share. I want to actually slideshow. Okay, can everyone see a slideshow? Okay, good. We are doing quite a lot. I'm just going to minimize the pictures of you all. It's lovely, but it's distracting. We have paid the first year invoice. We are planning now. Dawn doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to be appointing Dawn as the program manager to get this through. There's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of steps. There is actually a ton of things that everybody in the team needs to do. So Lisa will be working on membership and chapters. Harold will be working on coding an import tool so that we can get the chapters and whatnot in. Let me just let the cat out. He's going to get really annoying. Excuse me. Move along. Come on.
Took me a moment to realize that was not a euphemism.
Cats and locked doors, they hate them. Okay, we've got some leaders as members town hall. We do have an item on the discussion on this call to talk about that as a board. Apache logging, we had a really great meeting. I will be following that up. Honestly, that was a fantastic meeting, and I'd love, this is exactly our mission. We should be helping folks like Apache and others. They've asked for some resources such as training, learning a bit more about things. They need to actually work some stuff out internally as well about how they can interact with us, because generally only Apache members can actually see the security stuff, and we're obviously not an Apache member at the moment. We do need to talk about force majeure and sanctions. I did post a thing to the global board about it, but fundamentally there's a draft policy. We do encourage you to submit feedback on that. There's a partnership policy that Avi is working with us on. We're stuck in a hard place at the moment. We've got a lot of people coming along saying they want to do co-marketing or a partnership with us. We need to formalize how we do it to prevent all the different ad hoc things. And I think that then comes back to, there was a complaint, I believe, that's been filed along these lines. Fiona will probably fill in the board at some point, but fundamentally we don't have a policy. So whatever we're doing is not working. We need to have a policy. The chapter policy, Avi, Sam, Lisa, myself and Harold, we're all working through the text. We need to operationalize that policy and get the settings right, and then we'll put it back out to the community. The 4-day work week, we are starting on April 1st, the trial survey, which is the hard data that shows whether or not it was successful or not, is coming this week. And hopefully we will actually have a successful trial. It's got to work for the community. It's got to work for us. We will try it. It goes for 6 months. And once the trial is over, there will be some more research done by the university researchers, and that is going to be exciting. As I said, it has to work for us. We have to get better at productivity. We have to work better. So there are going to be some changes, and hopefully the AMS is just the beginning of them to actually allow us to be more proactive with the community and do it in 4 days. And with that, operations, we had an insurance renewal. You can read this. Dawn's been very busy behind the scenes. We do need to probably have a chat about DEF CON. I'll do that with Grant and Glenn, but fundamentally it's moving forward. And finance, Tom.
Hi, everybody.
Sorry,
I'll go-
I have one question on initiatives before we move on.
Mhm.
The 4 days work week, I understand that's for the staff, right?
Yes.
So this shouldn't be on the OWASP Foundation initiative. I think it's a work item and not a board item, or not.
Okay, no worries. Well, I'll let you, if it goes south, we won't be doing it anymore. That's what I'll tell you. We're not going to stop operations for this. My goal is to make it work, and we'll see how it goes. And yes,
Yeah,
I'll remove it. I won't report it in the future for you.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, everybody. So Andrew has done a great job putting out what I put out in the financial package into a number of these graphs and charts. So I'll let you guys read through these. If anybody has any questions, let me know. But I'm going to go through a few specifics. Andrew, I'm going to grab the screen if I can.
Sure. Lauren, oh yeah, good, thank you.
As I typically do. So here's the balance sheet. So looking at some comparisons, our cash position at the end of February 2022 was almost $500,000 better than it was in February of 2021. We're holding steady with that. It's been like that for the last couple of months. Our receivables are up. That's not due to old outstanding bills. That's due to Kelly's going out and finding, new sponsors and some of the events we're running. As you can see, we wrote off what was outstanding from VZW at the end of 2021. Sorry about that. We also, with regards to assets, we're not carrying any more inventory anymore. We have some prepaids for Dublin, which is going through, as well as Snowfrock, and the prepaid others has to do with insurance, Hopin, of a few platforms that we're currently running. So right now, our assets are just under $1.8 million compared to $1.2 million last year. So we're almost $600,000 better than where we were in February of last year. I'll stop there for a second, see if anybody has any questions on our assets. Okay, not hearing any. Our liabilities, this fluctuates. This is our accounts payable. It depends on where we are at the end of the month. Our PPP loan was completely forgiven. These are all of our deferred revenue, which is a good thing because we've sold all of this. Now we just have to have the events, which we will. And we have a lot of deferred corporate membership revenue to recognize. That's done 1/12 of the term of their membership. When you look here at our equity is up a couple $100,000 from the previous year. Our net income year over year is better than it was. And again, our liabilities and equity ties out to our assets. And what you really want to see here is you want to see that our equity is more than our liabilities, and it is by almost double. So our statement of financial position at the end of February was very strong for OWASP. But I'll stop there for a second and see if anybody has any questions. Okay, not hearing any. I'll take us to the P&L quickly. So as you can see, our revenue versus our budget. Now, what you all see is an annual budget. I break it up on a monthly basis based on prior year history, so that we have something to compare to. So we are up in conference revenue because we didn't budget very much in the first quarter, but we did have a couple of events. Our membership is up, specifically due to being able to recognize corporate memberships that were sold last year, but their term runs into this year. So we're about $47,000 ahead of budget in income. When you look at our expenses for the month, we're actually $11,000 under. Again, this was paying for one of the platforms, but as you can see, you know, we were 31,000 ahead in revenue, only 4,000 ahead in expenses, which is a very good thing. Everything else is more or less under budget at this point, which, you know, the staff's doing a great job. Following the budget, we showed a positive net income for the month of February versus a budgeted loss. So for the month, we were about $58,000 in net income, better than what our budget was. I'll stop there for a second, see if anybody has any questions on our performance for the month of February. Not hearing any. This is a 2-month look, January and February. Again, we're over budget in income, basically for the same reason that we were in February. Our expenses, again, are under budget in just about every category, except, as I said, we're over budget in conference income, timing a little bit for some of the expenses, but we're $18,000 under budget in expenses, and versus our budget for net income, we're almost break even, although our budget, because the first quarter was kind of light, was showing a deficit of 86. So we're about $82,000 net income better than we were in our budget, which this is a cushion for us as we move through the year. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
I just want to let the board know, because it's sort of material. Lauren and Kelly have been doing amazing work at negotiating a better deal with CCD. We're likely to have a dramatic reduction in the actual fees. We're also just at the moment chasing down what we actually have paid to make sure it's recognized. And so Dublin is likely to be profitable. It will be a smaller event. It'll be cozy, but it will be profitable, I believe. We'll have more information on that once we've actually signed the contract with Glenn. In all likelihood, this is within your signing authority, but if the board wants us to have Vandana sign, it's going to be about 80,000 euros. It's within Glenn's signing authority, but I'm happy to go with either. Okay, so
Grant has a question.
More comment than a question. Everyone who's anywhere near Dublin this time more or less next year needs to make sure that they're attending.
I would like it very much if that could be the 2023 board meeting as well, because it's nice and early in the year. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Martin. You can come to the November one. We'll try.
I will be there. I will be there. I will make sure that you guys there too.
There you go.
Yeah.
You can run, but you can't hide.
We will try to keep on top of expenses and earn more income so we can afford to have a board meeting this year in person in November in San Francisco. So please keep the dates.
So
Okay.
Kelly, I got your note. I sent you that. I'll go look for those couple of specific questions you have, but we're on track with Dublin at this point. So a couple of the other things Andrew noted, the insurances. So they're all up for renewal. The payments are in process. We actually got a little bit of a break by $10 on one of our policies, which is a little, it's not what I'm seeing throughout the insurance industry. Rates are going up, but ours stayed the same for the same coverages that we had. So we have not only directors and officers, but we have the European general liability as well as the US general liability policy. So those are all in good shape. I'm working on the 990 data to get that to the CPA, hopefully by the beginning of April, so that we can get the tax return done. The annual state return was filed in February in advance of the March 1st date, so we're in compliance in Delaware. Other than that, things from a finance and operational perspective are running well. So I'll take any questions anybody might have before I turn it back over to Andrew.
So I will be producing a 2021 annual report for fundraising purposes and putting it up on the website. Unfortunately, we didn't do that for a number of years, but I think it's really important for GuideStar and Charity Navigator to keep our scores up, to actually have that transparency. Okay, and with that, that's the end of the executive reports. Let's get into general business. I'll just reshare my screen just very briefly. Where's Zoom? And I will stop this. I would recommend that the board do read the slides. There's a lot of information about events, grants, and other things. I just wanted to let you know that we are trying to improve the way that we report, so you get a visual picture of where we're at. If there's any information that is not there, please do talk to us. Martin gave us a list of things that he would like to see, and they're all in here now. I definitely think, you know, the board, this is the way that we communicate and give you the oversight you need. Please let us know if there's anything that's not here. And grants, this is one of the asks, is essentially what are the current grants that are outstanding. We also have some other prospects in train at the moment. We had an interesting one from a Chinese organization, but it's unfortunately a sanctioned organization. So I will be getting back to the flagship project on that. As I said, there are lots of interesting things in this report for you. So please do review. Let me get out of this. Go back to the minutes. And again, we had a couple of motions that were approved. And okay, I put this up top so Yvonne could talk, but is Fiona in the room? No. Okay, we will pass on the compliance committee briefing. I think honestly, Martin, you said you had a hard stop. I think honestly, let's have that discussion on leaders as members and start that as a discussion. There's no other business this month. We can talk about the trademark strategy later, and you can review the recording. Is that okay? Not hearing any objections. Okay. Diving straight into this one. I'm sorry, Bandana, I've taken over the meeting. I'm not going to put in my 5 cents here because this is essentially for the board to do. The new association management software requires leaders to be members. It is as simple as that. We do need to get there. We've got some town halls coming up. I appreciate you coming to those if you can. So Martin.
Yeah, I think it's really bad to say that it's required because our software requires it, right? A software must follow the process. Otherwise, you have to choose the wrong software, not the software process adjusted to the process adjusts the software. It's really bad. I think in general, we have to have an awareness raise our leaders. You are leading an OWASP project, therefore you have to say yes to OWASP. We already said that, and I am a kind of a try to advocate, and we had a discussion on that, to say pay what you care or what you're willing to pay, how to pay what you want to pay. I think definitely that's something that I forward, because then people might pay more than $50. I know there's a risk. There's a risk of people just saying, okay, I can get a free OWASP membership. But there's also the opportunity for people to say, hey, I live in the Netherlands, why should I pay 100 or 150? And maybe we have more members paying $20, $10, whatever they can. So I'm definitely will forward this conversation about the opportunity for pay what you care to do. And I think definitely our leaders must stand in front of a community. You have to stand in front of a chapter, your project. And how can you do that when you're not saying yes to OWASP? That concerns me.
So to give some context to that discussion as well, I did make some assumptions in one of my emails, and Martin responded to that. And thank you again, Martin. In the 14 months that leaders have had free membership available to them, only 100 have taken it up. We have 660 something left who need to do so. So $0 is too much for these people. So either the board has to designate that leaders are members via a temporary or permanent mechanism, or alternatively, you know, I think Avi, you made the comment, and I won't speak for you, but you said that essentially let's divide the model in this particular issue. But you go ahead, please.
That's exactly what I was going to say, actually. So thanks, Andrew.
Okay. So the model of membership, the board sets the fees and how the model works. I do encourage you to understand that membership is fundraising for us. It actually has paid for itself for the first time. My only concern with pay what you want is it may reduce that, but that is the board to decide. I'll shut up at that point, Martin.
Oh, yeah. It's, I think that let's Grant first because he hasn't said anything to the subject yet.
Yeah, so I just wanted to I just wanted to say, let's start. Do we as a board agree leaders should be members? Is that statement true? If that statement is true, we can carry on with the rest of the discussion.
I would
If we
ask
need to
the
discuss it
inverse.
first, let's start there.
Yeah.
Can we ask the inverse, Grant? I think that's an easier question to answer. Do we, as a board, agree that non-members should not be leaders?
Yeah.
I don't know that that's easier to answer, but
Okay,
it's the
I'll
same
take it back
question,
then.
Juven.
It's double negative.
The negative
No,
is
but
easier. It's more finite.
Well, it does also cut to the crux of the matter, because if a leader doesn't want membership, do we remove their leadership? It does cut to the crux of the matter. I like that. So,
and I think, I think that's not the only thing. The question is, what we had read in the past, we said, sorry to interrupt, Grant. Are you okay? All right. So I think that
between you and the virus, don't worry.
Yeah. So the thing is, as long as it's contained in the UK, I'm fine with that. So I think the thing is that
Got it in the
apparently
Netherlands.
with all love and pleasure, don't hug too many people there. So anyhow, so to go back, why the question would be, why did our leaders not apply for free membership when they could? That's something I want to hear from them. Like apparently they didn't care, or they thought nothing would change. So we have to ask them why does not happen. When you get a free leadership, every member leader, you get a free membership, and it's too much. What was the problem? Why didn't they do it? I think for the chapter leaders, we had the agreements for when you have chapter leader, you have to do a policy, as we have for all our official things, and then we have said we need the same for all our leaders, definitely. Yeah, and I think that's a problem. Okay.
I think the town halls have the opportunity to ask that question of them directly. It's very a qualitative, not a quantitative. We can't do a survey that says tick this box. I think we need to hear from them.
Yeah, thanks. Perfect.
Yep. Glenn. Oh,
Unmute yourself.
Thanks. I just wanted to hook into that because, you know, in the first years when I joined OWASP and did the SKF project, I was actually, you know, that person we're now discussing because, you know, at the time I didn't have a credit card. So for me, it was very hard to, you know, even if I wanted, I couldn't. So that was an issue. And later on, I found by pure luck, by talking to people, that I could enroll for a honorable membership. But also that was taking a lot of time, and also the process of getting it vetted and then approved was quite hard. So yeah, from those points of view, I would say we were a bit lacking, right? Nowadays I have a credit card. Actually, I want to pay more than $50, but I'm not able to do so unless I make a donation, or I don't even know how to do it. I didn't look very hard for it though, so I also need to be fair. But again, I think the point is that we should make it easier for our people, right? Yeah, and have more paying options as well.
Yeah, if I may, that was one thing that I, in the whole this was said. It's really, yeah, I know where it came from that we said credit card because it was just easier, but we have a lot of problems with people not want to try to use the credit card, definitely for an American thing, to make it easy to pay. When you look also at membership, we look at the membership website and you have questions. The NPA, so the non-personal account for whoever does membership for OWASP, so membership at OWASP.com or this should be more prevalent on the membership website.
Okay.
People should be able to find the information, otherwise it's very easy to ask questions. I think that's very important. And definitely the payment, because yeah, credit cards in Europe, no.
Yeah, I will take that on board. I'll work with Lisa to get the membership email done. But we do prefer tickets. Tickets are the best way because if we've got an SLA, emails, I actually can't see if they've been replied to. So I want to make sure everyone gets dealt with fairly.
But
As-
email
as
to
long as
your
it's clear.
ticket is easy, right?
Yeah, as long as it's easy to find and you
Yep,
don't have
I'll
to
work.
look for it.
So let's go back to do we believe leaders should be members, or do we believe that non-members can be leaders?
One question. Otherwise, you would say yes to.
Okay. Do we believe that non-members should be allowed to be leaders?
I just want to jump in. That question implies causation. As in, if you are not a member, we will not let you be a leader until you pay for membership, as opposed to
No,
the
until
two
you have
coming
membership.
together. Sorry.
You cannot be a leader unless you're a member. That's what it implies. The pay for part is
Right.
still up
No.
for discussion.
My point is, you can't be a member. You can't be a leader until after you're already a member. Whereas in my mind, these two should be combined. So I don't know if that nuance is on purpose or not.
We don't have any easy way of actually communicating with leaders who want to do that. We actually do have one
Right.
outstanding issue at the moment where a leader wants to become a complementary leader, but
So let's
Fadana
the
raised
reason-
her hand for quite some time already.
Sorry, yes.
Actually, this brings us to a question that what happens to the current leaders? Because we are granting them complimentary memberships. And we have so many leaders who actually are part of OWASP just because they've got complimentary membership. And what happens if, let's say, half of the people say that we don't want to pay for it? So do we have a contingency plan for it? It's just a devil's
So
mindset that's speaking.
before we go into pay for things, Vandana, let's first focus on the should all leaders be members question. And Avi, the reason I to stress Jubin's, I think, his point by making it the negative, because if we say all leaders have to be members, if you are a current project leader or chapter leader and you refuse membership for whatever reason or in whatever form, that means you will lose your leadership. That's the worst case scenario. That's the nightmare situation, right? So do we believe that if you refuse membership, you should not be allowed leadership? Glenn,
And
you
his
had your
hand
hand
up.
Yeah, Glenn.
Yeah, I get the question. It makes a lot of sense, right? But what is our reasoning like behind it? Because if you look at the numbers, it's quite high, right? 660. So we have a huge potential conflict and losing people. So what is our main motive to push these people now to become a member or not? I mean, what is in it for OWASP to do this very risky, in my opinion, risky push?
I have my hands up for this, Andre, for mine. But the thing is, when you want to play tennis, you are in a tennis association, right? When you play soccer, you're in a soccer association. When you play OWASP, you should be in an OWASP association. But we always say you don't have to be a member to participate. But when you're a leader in an organization, you say you want to lead organization, you don't want to be a member of. What kind of a leading by example is this? And that's saying yes for that. So it's like, oh yeah, I want to play tennis, but I don't want to be in a tennis club. It's like, so I don't want to confirm to have a racket. I wanted to have a baseball bat for playing.
But fundamentally, Glenn, that's the crux of this question. Why do we think as a board that you have to be a member to be a leader? And if so, what does that mean? Why do we say that? That's the discussion we then need to have. And clearly we don't all think that. So let's have that discussion. Let's talk about why.
Yeah. I have to leave in a minute. So I just want to say what also because it was also payment. And when you, what Glenn said, when you have a first project coming up, like an incubator project, you can be a temporary or a starting membership, right, from a leader. So say, okay, you come with new project, you have a temporary membership until you fully project's approved or whatever.
So
But
that's
there are possibilities around it. That's what I want to say. So I have to leave. And
Okay, Martin, thank
you know
you.
what? Okay, thanks. Bye.
I think the details of how we grant membership is, or what that membership looks like, first needs to get answered by, do leaders have to be members? And I'm happy to say, yes, I believe that all our leaders should be members. And there are some good reasons for that.
Yeah, and I get that, but if you look at the numbers, that's quite a, you know,
So-
what are we going to sacrifice based on the numbers, right?
So the primary reason, Glenn, that I think all leaders should be members is because the only way that the foundation has of interacting with individuals is interacting with their memberships and with members themselves. There is nothing preventing a leader of a key project for OWASP today violating our acceptable policies within, because there's nothing that the board can do or that any part of the foundation can do to deal with that kind of behavior. And right now there are 600 leaders who are potentially in that situation.
So the way that I was thinking about dealing with this was for there to be a transition period, give people a year. I would suggest that maybe we get people who want to be complementary leaders by default to sign a leadership agreement. We do have one. We do have it in policy that we're supposed to give it out once a year. And if you sign that, you become a complimentary member, but then you can optionally become a paid member if you want. I do think we need a transition plan. I don't think we can do this on the day that it goes live.
But you're talking about a transition plan. The board hasn't yet decided whether the to be state is actually correct, right? I mean, my opinion is all leaders should be members.
Right.
You should fall under the foundation if you want to lead part of this foundation.
So Grant, I agree with everything Grant said. I also personally think that leaders should be members. And to say it the other way around, if you're not a member, I don't think you meet the qualifications to be part of the foundation, to lead the foundation. I think where we're getting stuck, and Glenn, I agree with you. Do we want to risk 600 plus leaders just vanishing overnight because of this? But I think you're making that assumption because of, we're assuming that these leaders are going to not want to pay, A, or B, that they have to pay in order to be members. I want to decouple that from this conversation. I just want to focus, should you be a member if you want to lead a project? And I think the answer of that is yes. Does anybody disagree with that? Just on that point, the payment for it, we can talk about later.
I'm also okay with us just grandfathering in everybody who's currently a leader and then deciding for everybody in the future that they have to be a leader. So there's also that option.
Yeah, the problem we've got is from a legal perspective, we will have to get some legal advice to see whether or not we can force membership on unwilling leaders.
Well,
We're not forcing anything. It's just a requirement to be a leader, right? Like, so for future people, like we say you have to be a leader in order to, or you have to be a member in order to be a leader of a chapter or committee or whatever, then.
Yeah, so for future state, it becomes part of the onboarding process, right? You want to add this person as a leader to your chapter. That's fine. The person gets the leadership document to sign. They send it back. They get added. You want to create a new project. Part of the project creation process is these are the leaders. Those individuals get the leadership agreement to sign. They sign it, send it back. They become leaders. It's simple. They get membership as part of that. The paid for membership, not paid for membership is a separate issue altogether. But I think, Glenn, are you convinced that members should be leaders? Sorry, leaders should be members?
Yeah, I'm convinced about that. But, you know, I still want the challenge, you know, because it's a significant number, right? So that's why I'm, still trying to.
It is a significant number that we could potentially lose by asking them to become members.
Yes.
But if we ask those 600 to become members and we say to them, it's free, it costs you nothing.
Exactly.
Literally, you just need to sign the foundation, and you're a member for the year. And every year, like all other leaders, you'll have to sign that document again. That's all you have to do. And they refuse to, and we lose those 600, then we probably need to lose those 600, or however many we lose at that point. Because that big number is also a big risk. It's a big liability.
Yeah, well, you could go statistically and see like, okay, how much issues did we already had, right, about it. But I do get the point, right? So indeed, I do agree. Leaders should be members. So that is clear. I'm just worried about the number being so big. I mean, this is what, got all us where we are, thanks to those people as well.
Yep. 100%
So
agree.
we should be very careful about indeed the details and have this transition or non-paid and so on. Yeah.
Avi, you got your hand up, and Andrew as well.
Yeah. So I agree with almost everything that was said. I want to point out two things. First of all, of those 600 leaders, it is highly likely that there's a big chunk of them that are non-responsive anyway. I mean, Don sends chapter leaders messages all the time for months, and they just ignore. They don't see anything. They're not really leaders. They're leaders in name. Lisa, what did I say? Don. I said Don. I'm sorry. Don also had issues with that in the past. But you're right. Lisa sends all those chapter emails. Absolutely. Sorry. So losing some of those might not be a problem.
Because we probably already lost them.
Exactly. Right. And, if we give them the opt out and they just ignore it, then you become members, or, well, whatever.
Well,
the other point I wanted to make, the difference, and this is why I was pushing back on the difference in the question that Grant and Jubin were asking. The basing it on the negative sounded like there was an a priori condition, a precondition. Before you discuss being a leader, you need to be a member. And this can be a problem. If I have a project that I want to donate and become an OWASP project, I can't be a leader of that unless I am a member before I donate the project. Which to me sounds, I don't think that's necessarily what you were intending.
That wasn't my intent.
Right. And that was my issue with that phrase.
Yeah, agreed. My intent is, once you are, for you to be called a leader, you need to be a member. The process in which you get there is not there.
Absolutely in agreement with that. Just want to make that clear.
Andrew?
Basically, there are several things going on here. One is that we would like leaders to be members for a very specific reason, and that's expenses. We don't want to just have random people being able to access the expenses. Now, we do have a bucket of money that if we run out, we run out. But at the end of the day, basically, it's unusual in organizations not to have that. But also, signing the agreement may actually solve that chicken and the egg. What I would suggest to the board is you need to make a bylaw change to say leaders must be members. And then second, you need to have another motion, probably doesn't need to be in a policy, doesn't need to be in the bylaws, about the transition. I think if you keep those two things separate, you can probably get a motion together on the bylaw change much quicker than the transition plan. Okay, so honestly, as a leader of two flagship projects, I've been a member for a long time, and I will say it out loud. I was an honorary member for a couple of years there before I became a lifetime. Once I realized when I got onto the board in 2015 that I had standing issues and I'm not good at remembering to pay bills, I became a lifetime. So quite frankly, we need to make whatever you decide operational. So please don't make it complicated.
So I guess that then brings us to the second part of the discussion. Should memberships always be paid for? We currently have the concept of complimentary memberships, which was originally honorary memberships, which 2 years ago, last year, it's COVID years, I actively championed for. I believe that individuals who want to donate projects and want to donate their time to those projects and who want to put together communities and help build communities for us, they shouldn't also be asked to pay money. But I'm okay with having that overruled. I also like the idea of memberships becoming more a flexible thing. Pay what you think it is worth to you this year. That becomes complicated. How do we manage it? How do we operate? Very complex. I'd like to avoid making it too complex. But I guess firstly, our memberships, you pay a fee, you become a member, end of story? Or do we keep that complementary, the concept of complementary memberships globally, not just, as it's defined in the complementary membership policy now?
So Grant, I don't want to deviate and go down down a tangent, but I do think the concept of complementary memberships should remain, because we have certain people that aren't even leaders of projects that put in an enormous amount of effort into the project, and we should value their time. I can personally think of a few people on the compliance committee. So there are individuals that go way above and beyond the call of duty, and I think we should reward them with what little we can, and if the membership is one of those, then so be it. But I don't want to complicate this conversation. So are you suggesting that the pay what you can, we can attach to this initiative of bringing that online together with this?
I think, let me answer this question, Andrew, and then I'll call on you. I think that we already have a mechanism for allowing complementary memberships that is reasonably operational, and I think is fair. It's in the membership policy. It's defined there what the requirements are for that membership to be granted to you. That does need to be tweaked, but I'm loath to go and change that policy until we have a better understanding of where we want to end up. So if we say all leaders must be members, and we keep there is a way for you to get complementary membership as part of that existing membership policy, then we can move on to how do we go from a bunch of leaders who aren't members to those leaders are now all members or no longer leaders, and then move it forward from there. I think we need to have a transition to everyone is a member before we figure out what paid membership looks like. And I think we should just grandfather in everyone who wants to retain leadership of a particular project or chapter as complementary under the terms of the original agreement. They then get complementary membership for this year, right? Or for the year that gets implemented. And then we can worry about what future paid for memberships or not paid for memberships look like as a separate issue, because it is a big thing that's going to affect operations a lot.
So I will take this opportunity to lower my hand. Whatever you decide, I'd like to make sure that we don't pay twice to get the AMS to do things. So I think the town hall coming up next week will be a great opportunity to figure out if you want to do that second one. I don't want to have, like, one of the first tasks of the AMS is to set up our fee schedule. I will start with our corporate memberships and then work backwards on individual memberships once the board has actually decided. I do want to just point out, most professional associations have far greater fees, annual fees than ours. CPAs, for example, it's nearly $1,000 a year if you're doing that correctly. And you can't be an accountant to call yourself a CPA unless you maintain currency and also pay the fee. Osaka, there is no equivalent here. I think honestly, our industry is extremely well paid for the most part. I think if you want to actually fund scholarships or complementary membership on a needs basis, I'd be behind that. But just simply allowing people who are earning, probably six figures in most countries or the equivalent, the ability to pay nothing, I don't know if that's correct. But look, again, the board is the one who decides the fees. I am hearing that you all want complementary membership, so I will leave it at that.
I'll also say probably more closely aligned to us, EFF and the Linux Foundation have significantly higher fees as well to be a member. I would also note that we haven't changed our membership pricing since 2008, and we haven't adjusted for inflation. And just the Google Apps membership is enough for us to be close to potentially losing money, depending on the year, on the member, right? Because those prices have gone up and we haven't increased anything. Now, Andrew, I don't know if those prices have gone up for nonprofits like us.
If we were paying Google Apps for our environment, I think we'd be making a loss on every membership, even at $50. Andrew, you're muted in case you're answering that. I think the OWASP.org domain is complimentary. It's free.
It is, but we do have limits, and we came close to them a little while ago. We have, I believe, 100. I believe we have 100 petabytes, and we got close to our overall limit. Someone had actually stored like 25, an extraordinary amount of videos and photos. Let's put it that way.
Hackers. So, Juven, you're right. I don't think that the examples that you gave, Andrew, are particularly like us, but Linux Foundation is very much like us, as is the EFF. And a membership with the EFF for a year is far higher than $50. I mean, I'm embarrassed to admit that I too had the same situation as you, Andrew. I was a complimentary member for a while, and then I was a student member because I could get away with that because I was a student. Now I'm a lifetime member, but I was happy to pay towards the EFF's mission every year I went to DEF CON. So
okay, what I'd like to do is I'd like a couple of board members to see this through. We need to write a motion to change the bylaws, which will need to be approved. We need to come up with a model. So it's basically a working party with me. Who would be interested in being a part of that? So to draft the motion and see it through for a vote.
Raising my hand is me volunteering.
Okay.
Just checking that was the case, Juven.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Juven. We can always get other people on board later, but we do need that bylaw change, more or less, and we will need to announce that at the town hall. I don't think we need to do the vote right now, but I think the motion needs to be drafted, and it should be as a package, because when we change the bylaws, we need to operationalize the change. So if it is, people sign the leadership agreement, and as a result, if they don't end up, if they don't have a paid membership now, they will get complimentary membership at the result. We can operationalize that. But fundamentally, we do need to come up with a model. If you decide to change the funding model for membership, I do ask that, can we please do some financial modeling and don't bake it in for all time. If we lose a lot of money over it, it will impact our ability to have operations, and I don't want to lose the funding that we get from it at the moment. But look, Juven, I will touch base with you very shortly, and we'll have a look at the bylaws and the membership policy. That actually has a bug in it. It still talks about honorary membership. I need to change the wording on that. But yeah, we'll have to look at what needs to be changed and present to the board a motion to make leaders members. And then I think this discussion on how do we actually do it? I think that's a very important question. Let's go to the town hall, listen to the leaders, and then come back and actually decide. Okay, and with that, I think honestly, we've had a lot of discussion. We've got 2 other items to go through. Vandana, please.
Thank you so much. I think we don't have anything further.
No, we've got the trademark, second part of the trademark. I just want to show you what I'm doing.
Okay, sure. Let's go ahead and see that.
Okay. Okay. Let me just do the slideshow. I'm assuming everyone can. Can we see the screen? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So We have spent $74,000 to date. I'm sure today's meeting will add to that. But it's important that we use and understand that legal fees in this context, almost everything to do with trademarks is legal fees. There is some registrations which we've paid, and as you can tell, we've got them until 2029 or 2026 in some cases. We have paid $1,500 for one opposition, and that's one of the reasons why in the new strategy I'm proposing that we don't generally oppose. And the enforcement, let's just go through that. This is the approved strategy. There is a slide deck, which is actually listed in the minutes, so the agenda, which you can go review. The previous board in 2020 approved this. There is a single motion. The motion actually is the only thing that was approved. It's not the entire deck. This revised strategy still adheres to that motion. So I don't think there needs to be any other motions. I just want a general agreement that the approach to reduce fees and also to probably concentrate our efforts around a couple of key marks is the way to go. So one of the things that we have had is we did a cease and desist with a gentleman who was using our name and branding. He wasn't an official project leader. Honestly, we should have gone down the path of trying to get him to come across and become an OWASP leader with his project, rather than what we did, which cost us $3,500, and we didn't get the project, we didn't get the person, and they probably think that we're really nasty people. So I want a win-win approach, become a corporate member and get a trademark license. At the moment, no one is licensed individually. We do need to actually promote what the board has already approved along these lines, which is a certain number of licenses based upon the tier that was done last year. I want to be able to market that better. And I think that's where we go. And as a result, we will withdraw individual licensing except for on very special occasions. Honestly, we need to go down we're going to protect the OWASP brand, the OWASP logo and Global AppSec. We've got those in most places. And if we update our branding policy and guidelines and templates for consistency, we will be able to, like as Yvonne said, for AppSec days, if it's somewhat separate and a little bit over there, we can get that in the template and help people understand what they need to do. But to do it, like if they've got their own look and feel, we just need to let them know, you need to do this to make that work. We haven't updated the branding policy in some time. We absolutely have not really gone to town and reached out to various people who are infringing our marks. I would like to do that once we've got the branding policy and guidelines updated and new templates. We could potentially bring in more corporate members using this mechanism and as a result fund some of the fees, but I don't think we'll ever make money. So the rest of the slides you can read, I'm not going to read them to you. I just wanted to show you DEF CON. DEF CON, almost every single piece of merch for DEF CON involves either their name or the little logo, and you can see it's got a registered trademark on it. That's their branding. We need to do the same for OWASP, and I think that's where a discussion between the board is. We do have in the project policy that OWASP projects should actually have the word OWASP in them, but we may need to go back and review all the other policies to make sure that we can actually enforce our marks by requiring the use of either the OWASP or the OWASP logo. When people create merch for themselves, a committee or a project or a chapter, it should involve the word OWASP somewhere on there. We don't want to have an event that has got nowhere to be found OWASP. We're funding it, we should have our marks on it. And then if someone tries to infringe our mark, we've got some rights, which is what we're paying for. So that's the discussion that I really wanted to have with you today, is about the at the moment, if you go to LOSCON, if you go to the Pacific Northwest Conference, although they're actually talking about, I believe, becoming a little bit more OWASP branded now, what is the board's feelings about revising the policies to require OWASP branding like DEF CON does and has done for years?
I think we can do that.
Okay, good. there is going to be some change, and we'll have to communicate it very carefully with the community. The town hall might be a chance to do that, but I do want to focus on the leaders as members question. That's what we've set the agenda for. Honestly, there are going to be some people who are going to take this well, and there's going to be other people that won't. And so I think we need to be fair and equitable, but we also need to justify why it is. I think this is a good way of actually making sure that everything that we do at OWASP has got our branding somewhere on it. We're paying for it. We should actually get the benefits from it.
Andrew, does that mean all the chapter specific variants are supposed to go away?
No, not at all. It actually would allow more, like DEF CON. At DEF CON, there's so much great merch from them, but it always involves some element of their mark. That's all I'm asking. I actually want to get merch in the hands of chapters. I want to get the ability for them to create their own coins and stuff like that, but it should involve an OWASP logo somewhere on there. If you're creating a challenge coin and we're paying for it, our name or brand should be on it.
Right, but what Yvonne said is that variants of the logo are not part of that mark. So does that mean we have to have the original OWASP mark, or what Grant's Face is doing is also a good alternative?
Yeah, so this is what I was trying to bring up when she was on the call, and to actually get the opinion on it. But this is essentially it's the OWASP logo, the OWASP text in exactly the same font, and all the Cape Town team did was they put Table Mountain, a recognizable landmark, on the logo. And I know a lot of other chapters have done the same thing. And I think that this is still covered, right? This is still protected because it's.
She did say that only the United States needs to have it somewhat separate. Everywhere else, it's not so important. I think we can get away with murder in most places as long as, but at the end of the day, in the United States, we do need to have it somewhat separate, which is why in DEF CON, you see the smiley crossbones either somewhat separate from the actual design or somewhere incorporated into the design, but it's generally left alone.
Dawn's got her hand up.
Dawn?
Just an FYI for you, Andrew, I had asked, because I want to update the merchandise on Zazzle. So I asked Harold to reach out to some of the projects that don't even have like the WASP on it. And majority of them had no issue with it. Like Juice Box came back and put a WASP on it. So now I can make some merchandise for them and stuff. So most people, just FYI, didn't have an issue putting it on if it wasn't on.
Cool. Okay, well, I'm getting a general sense that this is an okay approach. I am trying to get the fees down. Last year, I did stop a lot of trademark activity because we'd really exceeded our budget by a lot. I do think we need to offset it with some income. And so we do need to have a marketing campaign to get folks like training companies and people who claim OWASP top 10 compliance and things like that to actually license our mark by becoming a corporate member. And I do think that we should be a little bit easier on the community about designs. I think there's lots of creative people in our industry, but I do believe we need to be able to approve those designs. At the moment, we don't let anybody do any designs, and I think that's a mistake. We should definitely allow people to modify their own look and feel, but be within the family feeling, if you like. Okay, that's all I really have for you. And if there's any questions on the trademark stuff from either Yvonne or what you just saw, go. Dawn, do you still need to talk?
No, sorry.
Oh,
Take your hand down.
Okay. Okay.
I want to ask Kelly, you said there's going to be an interesting conversation with the local regional events. Can you elaborate? What do you have any specific things in mind?
Yes. I definitely feel like there will be some strong pushback from some of our local events with incorporating the OWASP name or logo with their event, even though the funding is coming from the foundation. Specific one particular event in mind.
Which
I don't want to bring a this is being recorded, so I will, keep my peace, but yes,
And is this more about including the OWASP in the conference name? Is it more about the logo? Like where are you seeing it be the issue?
You can
I
barely
think-
tell that conference is an OWASP conference when you go to the website.
Andrew, you know exactly who I'm thinking of.
Yeah. And we've got ongoing discussions about ownership of the domain name.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, that's been going on for what, 2 years now, and we still
Yeah.
don't have. So,
I don't want to badmouth them. The current leadership of that particular conference put on an awesome conference, and quite frankly, I think we can work with them. It's just if there was one policy that applied to everybody, it wouldn't be like we're targeting them. And this is not about them at all. It's really about making sure that if we have a problem with infringing trademarks, we've got the ability to do something about it.
Mhm. So I'm just trying to understand like to what depth they need to go. Does it need to be OWASP conference name all over the place? Does it need to be the domain name, or is it enough to put at the top or at the bottom of the site?
supported by something
yeah.
to give us some
Yeah.
recognition.
Something like that.
Honestly, I think the closest we can probably look at is other people who do that, and that's like TED and TEDx. They make the branding very prominent, but it's probably not involved in the domain names and things. What we'd like to do is get to a place where events and projects and whatnot have subdomains of OWASP.org, just like Apache does for every single one of its 300 plus projects. We should be doing exactly the same thing.
Mhm.
You know what, if we weren't so OWASP.org / project project name, that would make me so much happier, because slides where you have to put in the text up on them, man.
Okay. Look, some of the things like that will go away with the new AMS, others will stay. We haven't actually worked out what will change and what will stay as of yet. We don't know the functionality. Lisa.
I just had a question because I noticed, I think I heard somebody say about Linux. Does Linux have individual members and chapters like us or not?
The Linux Foundation does have the ability for individuals to become individual members, but it's not exactly a well thought out program. I won't go into discussions that I've had with the Linux Foundation, but they see our membership program as something that is complementary to what they currently have. They're mostly funded by corporate sponsors. I don't think they see individual members as being anything other than a donation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I thought our strategy was to diversify our revenue income.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That is my strategy, but the board gets to set fees,
Yeah.
and they have the strategic direction.
No, I understand.
Yep.
I was just, Kelly and Lauren got a heavy load to carry.
Cool. It is 11:30. Vandana, is there any other business that you want to talk about? Did you take over the meeting?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we don't have any business today around that. We can conclude the meeting here. So I'm happy to sponsor. Oh, Avi wants to say something before I conclude.
Sorry, I noticed that Zoe and Loredana are here. I'm guessing that's due to Andrew's request that the committees jump in to give a report on their committees.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that request. My bad.
You sent that request.
I sent that request, but I've been
Didn't see the
busy.
responses.
I'm bad. I'm bad. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Zoe and Loredana. Thank you so much for coming. I should have probably asked at the beginning. So I so deeply apologize. So could you give the board a quick briefing? Do you need a host presentation or anything?
So Zoe here, Dawn has, been coordinating, really well. It seems that the major thing is that we want to hold secretary re-elections because Andra is no longer able to commit the amount of time. And so mainly that, and just also making sure that it's all right that, other committee members are able to get the Zoom credentials from Harold so that they can host on their own so that we can continue more regular meetups virtually, because I know that the webinars have gone really well. So if we could get them access to the Zoom and also the YouTube channel to upload afterward, then we can host more, because we are getting some more good participation, regular attendance at calls, and I really want to make sure that we can continue to build upon that rather than have restrictions.
I can get with you, Zoe, with that. Just give me some names and I'll figure that out for you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that was my intent for Ruchira, but also really anyone else who's a paying member and active committee member to go and be able to do that. I just want to make sure, I mean, I have the Zoom credentials, but I don't feel comfortable saying that I have the authority to share them as much as a staff member would. But I know
You're
that
on mute, Andrew.
Sorry, my bad. So Zoe, I work with Dawn on that one. YouTube is definitely trivial for us to do. We do have a social media contract that I need to get the lawyers to review or give us another one. But generally, you know, Nancy Garish actually has access to it now, and it's working quite well.
Or like,
oh, yeah, global OWASP. Yeah, we also have a WIA one that Katie and I had set up a while back. That was the one I was referring to, but if we could get the global OWASP one for uploads, that would also be great. But I think also the Zoom credentials, I just want to make sure that there's a process for that to be shared. I imagine you'd want to track internally who gets access for administrative purposes. So yeah, again,
yeah,
you know, I guess
just work with Dawn on that one. That's no trouble. One of the things that I asked, oh, sorry, Avi, you've got a question.
Yeah, thanks for the update, Zoe. I just want to point out, you mentioned you need to voting for the new secretary. I just want to point out, I don't know if you know, according to the policy, there needs to be voting at least either every year or every 2 years for all the officers for the entire committee.
yeah,
And there are term limits as well. I have no idea how long anybody's been on the committee, but there, I think it's something that most of the committees, your committee has probably been around the longest, other than compliance probably. It's just something worth noting as well.
yeah, we came up with that because that's a new change from last year. And we discussed it with Andrew of when we're going to do that, because most of these committees have hit that time frame.
Yeah.
So am I going to put it in with the general elections, or, you know, because we got to do the WASP too. So that has been a conversation with Andrew. We're going to figure out the time frame with that.
Yeah. Honestly, the committee's policy is not set in stone. If the board wants to remove that requirement for election, let's get it done before we have to call the election. It's difficult enough to get volunteers. Forcing them through an election, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work. However, Zoe, one of the things that the WEA and hopefully the DEA committee will do is participate in AppSec Globals. We have one coming up in November. Do you guys have a plan for that at the moment?
No, not at the moment. I guess we should put that on the agenda for the next meeting. And that's a priority.
Okay. And one of the other things I asked was, and I apologize for not responding. I'm actually appalled at myself for not seeing it. Do you guys actually have a strategy that you could share with the board, or do you want to develop one and then share it with the board?
Strategy for the conference specifically, or are you speaking in general?
In general, how are you going to improve the diversity situation in our field? How are you going to, what programs do you need? What funding do you need? That sort of thing. So fundamentally, you know, we definitely could get more corporate sponsors of diversity initiatives if we actually had something that we could actually fundraise with, for example. So that's the sort of thing that I'm looking for in a strategy. I'll come to the next committee meeting if that's something you haven't got just yet.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. You know, I think a lot of the items that would require funding are ones that we've been collaborating on with, you know, Spiros and Outreach Committee.
Mm-hmm.
I guess also because, he's Spiro / that committee has been excellent in getting things done. And, joining forces is, I think, a great idea for conferences moving forward.
Mhm.
And anything else that would require costs or other, funding or other resources, then we'll just decide on that. But I just think operationally, again, because of limitation on volunteers, really getting anything big done that would need to be sponsored has just been a lot more feasible
Okay.
with the help of the outreach committee.
Do you think that there might be a time where we might want to collapse the outreach committee and the DEA committees so that you can join forces and maybe have a force multiplier?
I would definitely discuss that with the outreach committee as well. I think, operationally it helps to keep them, separate. But I think, again, as far as getting official timely action items done, especially as it relates to, anything with money, it's just been a lot easier to get things done with this in collaboration. So, and I know from an OWASP perspective that, that's obviously, a big factor
Mhm.
because leadership is, something that has to be done with the foundation.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, that's all I can say. I think operationally, as far as meetups, webinars, etc., there's definitely benefit from doing our own things as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. If we could just make it kind of commonly understood that those larger action items would be done with the outreach committee, I think that would be great.
Cool. Sorry, Grant.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that things that DEA have done in the past with like the scholarship sponsorships to OWASP events. That's something that we definitely have availability for that in the budget. We definitely want to be doing things like that. So just bear it in mind. And if that happens with the outreach committee, that's great. But they're also talking to other organizations. They're talking to other groups of people that aren't normally involved with the foundation. There may be a bit of an overlap there. So maybe working together with Spiros. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense. Just because of the resources to get things done as far as, the volunteers.
Yeah.
Just makes a lot more sense.
So sorry, so what are those things that you're trying to get done? Like going back to Andrew's question, like what are your targets of what it is that you're trying to get achieved?
Well, I guess, streamlining the processes of getting sponsorship, for example. And, presence at conferences, etc. None of that in the past would have gotten done if it hadn't been for people like John McCoy, who were also part of what then became part of the outreach committee, essentially. But being able to streamline that and not having the honestly extensive miscommunications that we've had in the past, being able to streamline that now that we have things set up. So, and then I think if we get that streamlined, then it'll be easier to get sponsors for diversity luncheons at AppSec conferences, et cetera, moving forward. And it won't be like having to, build everything from the ground up each time.
Yeah. John actually organized for some donations. I'll work with Tom Pappas and make sure that's in the correct category. We should do some fundraising for you to actually support that initiative as well.
Great.
Cool.
Great. Yeah. It's been, amazing work with everyone involved in that. I just, excited to keep building that.
Cool. And while we've got the board on, is there anything that you would like from the board?
Nothing specifically. I mean, I guess both we and the outreach committee will keep you posted on that as more specific things come up. But Laura Dunn, if you're still on the call and you have anything to add, please feel free.
Thank you very much, Zoe, and thank you for the opportunity, to speak with the board. I agree with what was discussed, and on the ideas that we shared, and I do agree on the fact that perhaps we are working on some type of strategic planning in order to grow, to be more known, to get more people participating. What perhaps can be a help, I do not know how, but anyway, a help from the board could be to facilitate also the connection with the local chapters. That can be a very good, way to share with the different chapters our goals, our what we are going to do, and and have this opportunity. I know each chapter has a lot of activities, and people is volunteering, so it's not easy to balance. But I think that if you can support this, perhaps we can explain to the audience of the different chapter what we're doing, and we can get more local support also in order to have more people sharing our ideas and goals, and projects and funding and so on. This is just a general idea we share with Zoe.
Thank you, Laura Dunn.
Cool. If there's no other questions, does the board have any final questions? And then I'll hand it back off to Vandana. Okay. Again, I apologize for not seeing your email, and apologies for not understanding why you were here. That's actually terrible. I do deeply apologize. Vandana.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much, Loredana and Zoe, for joining the call. It's good to meet you here. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. And we are concluding the meeting. I am sponsoring. Who would like to second it?
I'll second it again.
Yeah, so our next board meeting would be on April 26th, and see you all then.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.